What is up, guys? Good morning. Happy Saturday. We're going to be going over some players to avoid and maybe some situations to avoid as well. It's August 16th as I record this, and it's draft season. Like, I got friends that are texting me coming out of the weeds and saying, hey, I got a draft coming up. What do you think of this? Who do you think of this guy? And all this good stuff. But we do need to be wary of some players and some situations to avoid. What I have pulled up here is I'm just looking at the underdog ADP. I don't really draft on underdog, but I do think it is one of the more important ADPs to take a look at because there's a lot of people spending big money on big drafts on underdog. I like DraftKings and drafters for the full PPR, but DraftKings, man, you can get some crazy stuff over there. Underdog's pretty sharp. These people know what they're doing. I think for the quarterback room, outside of, I think it's a very clear top five this year: Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson, Jaden Daniels, Jalen Hurts, and Joe Burrow. And then you can see this huge, massive ADP drop off from about 60 to 80, almost a 20 pick ADP to the next guy. And I don't really know if I have an avoid necessarily, like one name for the quarterback position, but I'm kind of avoiding a lot of these guys in this 6 to 10 QB range because I don't know, like, one of my philosophies is if I can't get an elite quarterback, I like to wait for a guy that I think could finish top five. And for Mahomes, Baker Mayfield, for these guys to finish top five, you're not really winning all that much in terms of value. So I'm looking for other players kind of in that, especially in that 7, 8, 9 round range. And I see Baker Mayfield struggling a little bit this year. You do have Chris Godwin missing time. I like Emeka Ibuka. And Mike Evans is still there. We'll see if he can continue to play at a high level. But there are some concerns there. I think Baker Mayfield played out of his mind last year, and there is going to be some regression coming due for Baker Mayfield. So I guess Baker Mayfield would be an avoid for me at this ADP. I mean, he was QB4 last year, but he threw for 4,500 yards and 41 touchdowns. These numbers got to come down. He did run for a career high in the rushing department, which was nice to see. But I have a hard time seeing him reach these top end numbers. So coming off at QB7, QB4, QB5 is kind of his ceiling. So I don't really see that as a huge win opportunity. Kyler Murray last year, I had Kyler Murray on a handful of teams. He was QB10 last year. I just don't know if he has that elite rushing upside that some of the guys ahead of him do. He doesn't have the elite throwing upside as well. Even, Josh Allen and Jalen Hurts, those guys can match his throwing upside. And I just don't really know if I see top 5 potential unless he runs really hot. So I'm kind of avoiding Baker, Kyler. Same thing with Bo Nix. I think Bo Nix played really hot last year, and we're going to see some efficiency come down just a little bit. I am excited about what Denver can do, but I think they're going to have a really good defense. I think they're going to have a really good running game this year too. They didn't have much of a running game at all last year. Now you draft RJ Harvey, bring in J.K. Dobbins. You got an elite defense here. We could see some of Bo Nix numbers fall off a little bit. And again, like QB8 last year, we're kind of buying him what I think is at his ceiling, QB9. I think Brock Purdy's kind of priced well. It's this window of quarterbacks that I really like looking into. So as far as an avoid go, I'm kind of avoiding that QB 6 to 10 range because, after this, I can make a case for Brock Purdy to be a top 5 QB, Justin Fields, Dak Prescott, Drake May, even farther down the line here, maybe Justin Herbert, Jordan Love, Trevor Lawrence, these guys can crack the top 10. So it's more of like a positional value thing where I think these guys have more to gain up the boards. Whereas, if I take Mahomes at QB6 and he finishes QB 8, 9, 10, like I don't really feel like I hit that pick. So for the avoid, that's kind of the thought process there. Now, let's look at the running backs. I think this one's a little bit more interesting. I don't want to come out and just say I'm avoiding any of these heavy hitters. I play a lot of best ball, and I'm kind of mixing my ADPs out amongst all of them. So for me, there's really not many to avoids at running backs at ADP. I think the first one we should talk about is probably Breece Hall going off as RB14. The first preseason game was a heavy indication that this team wants to use more than just 2 backs. You have Breece, Braylon, and now Isaiah Davis. And technically, Justin Fields is a runner in this offense too. So there's a lot of mouths to feed in this offense. I think the Jets want to run the ball. They have one of the best defenses in the NFL, and they've just made all the moves that signal, hey, we're going to run the ball. They keep talking about using a lot of guys. And in the first preseason game, I got a little scared because there's really 10 snaps with the first team offense. Breece got 5, Isaiah Davis got 3, and Braylon Allen got 2. And a Justin Fields led offense, how many passing attempts to the running back are we going to get? That's where Breece has made a lot of his fantasy points over the last few years. You have the whole issue with him in the contract for next year, and the team probably not going to be a New York Jet. So just something kind of stinks there. I'm taking James Cook for sure in that range. I'll take Amari and Hampton. I honestly, at this point, over Breece Hall, I might even just wait for Henderson, Kamara, Connor, Harvey. Some of these other guys, I feel a little bit better with their situations, maybe able to improve as the year goes on. So Breece Hall might be the first avoid for me here at the early parts of the 4th round. About a month and a half ago, I would have said TreVeyon Henderson is an avoid. And I still hate this ADP, guys. I do not hate the player. I hate the ADP. That's been my case all offseason, summer long with TreVeyon Henderson. Is we're buying a fancy James White, Shane Vereen receiving back in this Patriots offense. I just, as long as Ramondre is healthy, I think TreVeyon Henderson is going to be, heavy receiving back. He could be number 2 on this team in receptions by the end of the year if he can hold on to his health and beat out Diggs and Demario Douglas. So I don't hate TreVeyon Henderson. I just hate the ADP. I wish he was a little bit cheaper. The other guy that I'm avoiding here is going to be Chuba Hubbard, though. I am pretty nervous about Chuba. He was not good as a receiving back last year. In fact, he was one of the worst receiving backs when I looked into my advanced metrics. And I don't know, man. You bring in a guy like Rico Dowdle, who he ran for 1,000 yards with Dallas last year. Chuba's a good runner, 250 attempts last year, almost 1,200 yards and 10 touchdowns. I like that aspect of his game, but he just offers nothing really after the catch when he's catching the ball. Whereas Rico Dowdle, he caught 39 passes for 250 yards last year, and he did catch 3 touchdowns, and he is a good runner as well. So not only I think does Chuba have volume issues in the receiving game, I don't know if I see him hitting this 250 carry mark that he got last year. So if people are expecting, I can just leave Chuba Hubbard in as my RB2 all year, I think there's going to be some volatility to that. He's RB18 right now. I think this is somewhere close to his ceiling this year. I'd rather buy Rico Dowdle and put him on my bench in a redraft league. So I'm kind of out on Chuba Hubbard. Let me keep on scrolling down here. This one's the easiest one. This has been one of the ones I've been on all off season, and it's the Pittsburgh Steelers rookie running back, Caleb Johnson. It does not look good there, guys. My analysis, with Caleb Johnson, his draft profile, the Iowa Hawkeyes did not ask him to catch the ball much, which these colleges, man, they got to find ways to get these kids more up to speed here. But I'm looking for one of the top tweets on Caleb Johnson because I don't remember who it was, but it was one of their beat reporters that basically said there's no way that they're going to trust Caleb Johnson in pass protection here. So not only does he not get on the field in passing situations in third down, but we have a rookie running back behind some capable veterans, Jalen Warren and Kenneth Gainwell, that are playing with Aaron Rodgers. I think when the chips are down and they need to play, they're bringing out Warren or Gainwell to make those. So we have no PPR upside here. And at this price, RB23, I know Underdog's a half PPR, but this is a terrible price. I think Caleb Johnson belongs in the Ray Davis, Trey Benson bucket of running backs. Like he belongs way down here in the 130s of an ADP. So I'm completely out on Caleb Johnson. I'm all the way in on Jalen Warren, and I've actually been taking long distance shares on Kenneth Gainwell as the emergency pass catching back. So no PPR path to value. Sure, he could rush for touchdowns and things like that, but I think he's going to be behind a little bit, and he's not going to pay off this 6th, 7th round ADP. He should be somewhere deeper. Other running backs, I can't touch Brian Robinson. I just don't think he's very good. He has not been able to stay healthy throughout his career. Not only did he have to deal with a gunshot, but these aren't amazing numbers. Like we're looking at a pretty mid running back here, about 4 yards per carry for his career average. Hasn't had a season over 800 yards. He did hit the touchdowns last year up to 8, which was nice. He's shown that he can receive the ball, But you got Austin Eckler there, and then this Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt rookie out of the 7th round here. The hype is just too loud, man. I think for me, if I'm looking at it and Brian Robinson's on the board here, about 7th, 8th round, I'm taking my Jaylen Warren. I'm taking my Tyrone Tracy right behind him here. I'm taking Jordan Mason for sure. I'll take Aaron Jones for sure. There's a lot of potential downside here. The team is basically saying that, I mean, there was a report the other day. Did I spell Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt right? There's no E in the Ja'Cory. One of the beat writers basically said that Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt is just been too good to not earn touches in here. And yeah, there's rumblings that Brian Robinson just might not be a big valuable role in this offense. So I think Brian Robinson's one of the easiest avoids for me. Let's talk about this Houston Texans backfield real quick. I think there are some very big concerns on Joe Mixon right now. As of right now, I don't see him playing week 1. My guy, there was one of the doctors that tweeted out some stuff yesterday based on some things that he heard. The Jeff Mueller here, he's received info from 2 different people. The info has been enough for me to fully remove Mixon from my board. And then the other big one was it was the owner of Football Guys, one of the head guys there. He basically said, yeah, Chubb's off my board. And then you have this Texans kind of beat reporter here kind of talking about things going on here. Joe Mixon remains on the NFI list, just kind of sharing the depth field back here. I think Nick Chubb is toast. I think Dameon Pierce is probably the guy that could lead this team in carries, and he's worth a pickup in Dynasty right now. And he's also worth an add and redraft or around, the last round pick. But the one to keep an eye on is Woody Marks. I think he is the receiving back. I think they like Dara Ogunbowale. These are their 2 receiving backs. So we got to watch for that to emerge. I think you're going to see it's going to be an RB by committee all season. Watch for the pass catching upside of Woody Marks. And who knows, maybe Dameon Pierce kind of channels some of his rookie year numbers and he ends up looking good. But as far as avoids, I want a couple more guys. I just am avoiding Cam Scatabo. I'd rather take some of the other guys in this field of range. Any other avoids for me? We're kind of deep enough in the list here. Always avoid Najee Harris. But there you go. There's some running backs to avoid. I don't really have a ton of wide receivers that I'm avoiding. If we scroll on down here, I think the easiest one to say is Tyreek Hill at the 2-3 turn. Yeah, he's the thumbnail video of the video here, but I can't take a risk here on Tyreek Hill. He's slowly turning into Antonio Brown more and more each day, it seems. You have the regression that he's had the last year or two. He's got the weird stuff going on in the media and Tua. He's kind of just a wild cannon, man, right now. And for me to take a 3rd round pick on a guy that I don't even know if he's going to be on the team in October, November, December, he could be sure, he could be traded. He could just quit. We don't really know. He's too wild of a character for me with this ADP right now to be interested in, especially because he's a speed player in decline. So I'm all the way out on Tyreek Hill. I think if you're looking at the Dolphins, it's pretty much all Devon Achane. I think you need to take a stance on Achane or Jalen Waddle this year as your guys that you're targeting. I'm pretty out. I don't know if I'm hard avoiding Garrett Wilson, but I'm pretty out on Garrett Wilson. The Jets concern me, man. I think if I'm just looking at the Jets as a big pie, I want the Justin Fields part of the pie where I get the rushing. And then, I can still root for Garrett Wilson if I want to when he does throw the ball, the 42% of the times that they throw the ball. I can get those Garrett Wilson points through Justin Fields. So that's kind of how I'm attacking the Jets. I'm not really into old receivers, man. We talked about Tyreek Hill. I don't think Davante Adams showed signs of decline, but he's tied to Matthew Stafford, which I didn't really talk about. I'm not really avoiding Matthew Stafford yet, but it is getting to a point where we have to be concerned about the back. And just you have an older receiver playing with an old quarterback here. So can Davante Adams not show signs of decline this year? I think that's likely. But for me, I like looking at some of the other younger running backs in that range. I don't really take a lot of Mike Evans. I don't really take a lot of Terry McLaurin either. I think McLaurin ran hot on touchdowns. You bring in Deebo Samuel and a couple other guys there. I think they want to run the ball. I'm a little nervous about the Commanders in general just taking a step back. But these older receivers, Mike Evans, man, how many more years can he keep getting his 1,000 yards and 10 touchdowns? I'm not quite sure. There's just younger players in other situations that I like quite a bit. The easy one for me is Rashee Rice as an avoid for wide receiver. Not only do you have to worry about the suspension, but you also have to worry about him just not being 100% himself after this bad knee injury. You think about last year, you look at the first 3-4 games that he played in, they didn't have anybody else to throw the ball to. Xavier Worthy was still not getting involved in the offense. Travis Kelce was slow, and Marquise Brown wasn't on the field. Rashee Rice was the only real weapon in that offense. And now you have a lot of a different feel to this offense. You have Isaiah Pacheco back. You do have Marquise Brown, who might be a guy that could earn a few targets per game. You have a Xavier Worthy who looked amazing down the stretch last year, who's going to earn more targets. And then you draft a rookie receiver there. Jalen Royals looks pretty good. And there's a few other guys in the camp right now that are starting to make some noise. So we're not going to see last year's Rashee Rice for sure. And then you just have to factor in the suspension, which I've seen the NFL wants to do up to 10 games for suspension, which is just no bueno. So Rashee Rice completely off my board. I'm going to adjust my projections after the video, and we're going to move some numbers around and probably lower Rashee Rice. Other avoids for me. Further down the list, I mean, Chris Godwin's an easy one. He's pretty hurt right now. I don't see him being quite himself at any point this year. He's the PUP candidate. I'm completely out on Chris Godwin, all the way in on Emeka Egbuka. I don't really draft a lot of Keon Coleman. I think he's really only useful in best ball purposes. As I get further down the list, I think Brandon Ayuk's another guy that I don't really care. He's going to miss the first 4, 5, 6 games. He's not going to be 100%. I think it's pretty easy that I'm going to let somebody else take him, and maybe they get him, ramped up by the end of the year. But you're looking at a player that's not going to be startable for at least 10 games this season, I think. Other far avoids down here, once we're down this far, there's not really a ton of avoids. So I think that'll do it for the wide receiver position. Tight ends, it's a very clear top 3, Bowers, McBride, and Kittle. I still have Kittle as the number 3. He's just not going to get the volume. He gets the efficiency amazingly, and we might see a little volume spike this year just with the injuries at the 49ers receivers. But I do think it's a clear top 3. And after that, you can make a case for anybody to be the next best tight end. I think Laporte is interesting. Hawkinson's interesting. I guess I'm going to say I'm going to avoid Travis Kelce this season. I think the downcline is we're in the downcline right now. I don't want to take a player, especially 35, 36, a guy that is clearly slowing down. I think volume's coming down, and we saw the efficiency and the yards after catch come down massively last year. He was not a factor in the red zone. They tried things and it just wasn't working. Kelce, I'm sorry. I'm avoiding Travis Kelce this year. I'm all the way in on Mark Andrews, though. Other avoids for me at the tight end position, there's not a ton of avoids because it's kind of a whatever position. I don't really take a lot of Tucker Kraft. I like Tucker Kraft, man, but I think they're going to kind of continue to feed this ball around to the offense, and you're just looking at a touchdown guy. For me, when I'm looking for a tight end, I kind of value those Evan Ingrams. The Evan Ingram, he's going to get volume. He might not get touchdowns, but he's kind of like the poor version of Trey McBride, where he could end up with 80, 90 catches this year, as Bo Nix loves the dink and dunk, and Ingram's going to be right in his sweet spot all season long. So I more so look for guys that are going to be high target earners. So Ingram, you can maybe argue Kincaid. I think Ferguson's going to be up there in targets. I think Pitts will be up there in targets. The clear end game target, though, is Zach Ertz for me. So I don't have a ton of avoids because tight end position is just kind of whatever. But my overall philosophy on drafting tight ends is pretty simple. I look for volume, and I am looking for a good deal. I usually don't like to pounce, but if I can get Bowers, McBride, or Kittle and feel good about the price that I'm getting them at, I will do that. Otherwise, to me, it's been Mark Andrews all summer. And then I usually like grabbing, older guys like Zach Ertz. I think Brenton Strange is a good tight end to look at as well. But that'll do it, man. That's the avoid list. It's August 16th. Check out the fantasyfellowship.com. I just updated Everything you need there. Projections are fresh. You guys can actually get access to my live projection document, and then you can, get all the cheat sheets that you need. There's PPR, half PPR, standard. And then I updated one of my favorite sheets is the flex sheet, where I just show you guys all the projection numbers. And it's basically like a top 400, like I have like almost 500 flex players ranked based on their fantasy points. So check that out, and your redraft rankings are in there. We're in it, dudes. This is the season. I'm excited to be here. We got a huge day of preseason week 2. Thanks for watching. Enjoy your weekend. Peace.